Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night, and it's been crazy, of course. You listen to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM New Orleans. I want to just plug this one place, Physicians Committee. It's a place that helps people who are messing with dogs for experiments and crazy stuff, and they've shut down a lot of things. The website's pcrm.org. pcrm.org, and you can give a little donation to help. But they've done different things like convince the Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine to stop using live pigs to train surgeons. God, live ones? Just crazy stuff about dogs. Like they've shut down some dog ones and things like that. There are a lot of calling out animal cruelty. They're working with Native American leaders about different things and dietary guidelines, and urging a university to stop its cruel and deadly heart failure experiments on dogs. So they do a lot of good stuff. That's pcrm.org. And then real quick, if you check out the computer game company Hooded Horse, and let me pull up the two games they're putting out. I don't normally say anything about games on here much, but I told them I'd help promote these two that are coming out. And of course I got access to them, so that's why I did it. And I'm broke.
Yeah.
But this one's really
cool.
They're on Steam, but they're probably coming to other things. But this
it's not a cartridge game, in other words.
It's Steam computer games. This one's coming out Monday. It's called Cataclysmo. Let me respell that. Cataclysmo. Design and build fortresses brick by brick to stand against endless hordes of horrors in this real-time strategy game with resource management, siege defense, and exploration. Lead from the ramparts, push back the darkness, and hold fast against the creatures of the mist. Basically, it looks like Lord of the Rings and Helm's Deep, and it looks awesome, like crazy. Right. Developers Digital Sun, and the publishers Hooded Horse, and that's Cataclysmo, Cataclysmo, and that's July 22nd. And then they have one more. This one looks. Me and Christina were laughing about this one. And she doesn't even really like games that much, but basically it's called Norland, and it's by Long Jaunt, which is a Norse developer. Long Jaunt is the developer. Publisher Hooded Horse. Norland is the game. Norland. Lead your noble family in this medieval colony sim, facing off against class conflict, religious struggle, and political treachery. Tend to your people's needs, uncover the lost knowledge of a fallen empire, and engage in nefarious plots against your enemies. And it's basically like you build your city. You got these little people running around. I swear it looks like Braveheart. We were laughing because there's this one scene where the queen or someone's in bed with an old bald dude, and they don't show it. They blotch it out, so I'm sure in the game they don't show it either, but they're in bed making love or whatever, and then she gets out of bed and clubs him to death. But it's like South Park graphics. Like they're funny, they look like little weeble wobbles. Norland, Norland, and it's got basically like a medieval kingdom simulator that reminds me of Braveheart or something, but it actually looks amazing. Really good.
Yeah.
But Norland, that just came out, and they're on Steam, and I'm sure eventually they'll come to everything else. But that's it for plugs. We got Jay McNicholas here co-hosting with us tonight. We got Barbara DeLong here tonight, the return of Barbara DeLong. Good to have you here, Barbara. How are you?
I'm terrific. Thanks for having me back.
And good to have you here, and thanks to Mark Eddy. And it's been interesting for sure. And I know you just had your Cosmic Deck of Initiation. Did that just come out? When did that come out?
The original Cosmic Deck came out 30 years ago, and it was published for 20 years by US Games, and then they stopped publishing it. And 2 years ago, Dimension Fold republished the deck of cards, so they're out there now, and you can find them on cosmicdeckofinitiation.com. That's where you can get the cards and the handbook that goes with it that has about 300 pages of information on the cards and what they mean and how to use them. And just recently, within the last 2 weeks, we released an app that has the Cosmic Deck on it. And it's that I'm very, very excited about, because not only are the graphics of all the cards on the app, but when you call up the meaning of the cards, it not only has all of the material that was in the 300-page book on it, but it also has me in an MP3 reading the meaning of the card, so that you don't even have to do the reading. I read it for you, and we have music behind it, and it was I have an amazing tech, and he made it look phenomenal, and I'm very excited about it.
Very cool. I collect a lot of different cards. I'm definitely going to have to pick up the physical this and the app. That's really cool. But I have a lot of different kind of cards over the years that I've collected, and these look very unique compared to the other ones I've seen. And the art is beautiful. Who did the art?
I did. I hand painted all of the cards.
Wow.
And with the app, the cool thing with the app, and the app is on Deckable, DECK. It's either IBLE or ABLE, but if you go to my website, there is a link to the page for the deck. And what's really cool about this is you can go into Deckable, you can find the Cosmic Deck of Initiation, and for 3 days you can try it for free, and you don't have to buy it. So you can, put it through its paces, check all of the stuff out about it, and decide if you want to buy it then. And the deck, the app is $19.90. It's $20. And what's really unique about this particular site is that they are continuously upgrading it and making more things available to the people that have decks, and you don't have to pay extra for the upgrades when they come, so that it's a one-shot deal, and you've got a deck of cards in your pocket on your phone.
And basically, I see you got a lot of testimonials by Michael Feinstein and a lot of different people that have used it. That's really cool. And well, basically, it's a spiritual deck as far as like ascension. And what are some ways that you would summarize what it's trying to embody?
It's a spiritual handbook for how you can bring the spiritual into your life and utilize it more efficiently and get in touch with source. And it's a deck of cards that you can use for divination if you want to. It makes a hell of a good reading, but it's basically for you to develop aspects of yourself, whether it's compensation or whether it's your heart chakra or whether it's some of the universal laws or the cosmic laws or the universal energies, so that it's definitely, I've often said that it takes you right from the foundation, the beginning, to the threshold card at the very end when you cross over into the next dimension. So it will take you all the way through your life and enable you to deal with situations within your life in a more spiritual manner, so that you don't dig up more karma than you can handle.
Definitely. And I know some of my paranormal experiences have included seeing light beings with my physical eyes, completely sober. I've seen two leave my house like they were in it and go through the roof and fly out. And something told me to go look that day. Mm-hmm. And I've seen them before in different ways. And I'm just kind of curious, what do you think about light beings? Does that ever come up, or the light body? And I've wondered if it's just us without our bodies and it was deceased loved ones like my dad. And I've had so many people pass away. Maybe they were visiting.
Well, yeah, I mean, light body energy, absolutely. But before we go there, this is what the cards look like. That's the back of it.
That's cool.
And that's the card itself.
Very
and
cool.
they're all, it's 52 different mandalas.
Oh, cool. And
so, but as far as light body energy goes, yeah, we are our bodies. We are electromagnetic beings. Our nerves and everything else have electric current going through them, and certainly, when in spirit, in etheric form, you're able to generate or draw energy from the living to create a light that when you're a spirit, you can pull it from the living to create a light that people can see and interpret as to whether it's a visitation or a spirit. It's not a haunting for sure, but the energy that we have is what spirits use to manifest.
That's interesting. Pull a light from the living. That gave me little goosebumps. That's when we know we're talking about something. Because usually when I talk about those light beings, I always get like goosebumps all over my arms. Yeah. But pull the light from the living so they can manifest to show them that they're being visited. It's interesting for sure.
And it isn't just light. Quite often, they will manifest a smell that you associate with them. I know that my grandfather used to smoke cigars, and we would always smell and see cigar smoke. And that's why those visitations are always so short, because they're pulling the energy from you. I mean, they can't hurt you, they can't kill you. Like we've got a battery. We're constantly generating electricity within us, so it's not like that they're taking anything from us that would be detrimental to us. But that's how they let us know they're around.
It's definitely something else. And seeing them, that was like I started freaking out, wondering if I was like transitioning, gonna croak, but I never did. So that was good. Just seeing them freaked me out a lot. With your physical eye.
Well, it is cool though, and a lot of times when things turn up missing, or they're not where you put them, they're able to use energy to move things around. You don't often see the movement. Sometimes you do, but for the most part, I knew I put it there, and it turns out here. What's going on?
I've had that happen so many times. I'll just close my eyes. I'm like, okay, haha, it's very funny. Whoever it is, put it back. I'm going to go to the bathroom and come back, or I'm going to go do this and I'll come back, and it better be here. And then I do that, and there's nobody in the house. I mean, their cat, but the cat knocks things off. They don't put them back. I walk away, come back, and it's there. I'm like, I've been looking for this thing for hours, and all you have to do is say that phrase, and it shows up. It is uncanny.
I woke up once, and I was alone in the house, and there were two cats with me, and it was like 3:00 in the morning, and I heard ka-thump, ka-thump, ka-thump. Wasn't footsteps, it was ka-thump, ka-thump, ka-thump. And I got up and I walked into the living room, and here were Kleenex tissues floating in midair, and the cats were jumping for them. And they were playing with it. They were playing with the cats. And I stood there and I watched, and I said, it's fine if you want to play with the cats. I got no problem with that, but I'm really trying to sleep. So could you cut it out for now? And the tissues just floated to the ground. And the cats looked at me like, why? And I went back to bed.
For that, I would have turned and ran right out the front door and never come back. That would have scared the bejesus out of me.
They were playing with the cats. They have to be cat people. I mean, come on. Yeah. It wasn't frightening to me at all. It was like, and I held meditations in that house on a weekly basis for 17, 18 years. So there was a lot of energy there. So it was real easy for spirit to pull the energy and float tissues for the cats. It was really kind of cool. If I had had a phone that had a camera on it, I would have filmed it. Of course, that was before the cameras and phones,
It's an exhilaration, it's like a high that when you see that kind of stuff, and then you chase it and want more of it.
Your fight response, yeah.
And you want more of it, and then when it doesn't happen, you're like, oh, I need my fix. And then it happens, and you're there. But yeah, and I can see why so many of these people chase it, like on all those shows and stuff. A lot of those shows are BS, but a lot of people, there's some stuff on there, but people chase it. It just comes to you. That's the best time. We have this place down the road on the Heritage Trail in Graceville, Florida, that they're tearing it down now, the Bible College across the street. And it's like this landmark native situation that happened where I guess like Spanish Christian monks came here and tried to convert them. And the chief refused to convert because they wanted him to only have one wife, and he wanted so many wives or whatever. So there was a revolt and, bloodshed. and this place is down the road from me, and it's I always go there, and I've never had anything bad happen. I've kind of loved it there. I jokingly called it Little House on the Prairie because it's like old churches and like old houses that are like nice, and basically they're tearing it all down. So I've been saying prayers and stuff about the spirits around here. You would think that would upset them. That they're just like,
No, it doesn't. When something horrific happens, there is almost like an imprint in time of that memory. For instance, 9/11, when 3,000 people died, there's an imprint in time. It doesn't mean their spirits are stuck there. It means the photograph of it is stuck there. So people can get flashes of seeing people or things or whatever, but their spirits aren't there. It's just that it's been imprinted in time. Battlefields is another place where you have that. It's like a negative. It's there, and you can feel it and you can see it, but in reality, their spirits have moved on. It isn't, I hate to say it, it isn't a living spirit. It's just a picture of spirit.
Yeah, it's like a replay. I've often told guests that talk about ghosts that certain hauntings are kind of like, it's like a repetitive thing. The ghost only does the same thing, usually around the same time, and always the same thing, and no change to it. And it's like a snippet, a recording of that person's life before they died or as they died, depending on the type of haunting. But yeah, I believe that actually does happen. I don't know how to explain it, but I've felt things that other people were in the room. Like I've had several cats that have passed away, and every once in a while you'll feel something jump on the bed.
Oh yeah.
And it's like a cat. It's nothing bigger than a cat. And then I'm like, I have to wait a second and see where that cat goes on the bed. And I'm like, oh, that's Sammy. Or if it goes this way, it's that cat. And it's, I know they're there. And like Jeff was saying, he got the goose pimples when he talks about the light beings. That stuff sends a streak of yellow down my back. It just gives you the shivers.
But it's cool.
It's cool as hell. But yeah, it's still it freaks you out because especially if I have 3 cats now and a dog, and my girlfriend works at night, so I'm usually here by myself with those 4 animals, and I usually know I know if they're in my room or not when I go to sleep. I know because a lot of them want to come in there before I close the door. But when I'm in there by myself and this happens, it's like, who's in here? And then that first startle is like it's fight. You want to, who's there? Who's robbing my house? And then you realize, oh, it's a spirit.
Yeah. No, I have a couple that my cat now will suddenly, her eyes will get really big and she'll look, in one direction or another. And I know there's a spirit there. Mm-hmm. And, any spirit that walks in here is very welcome. So, it's kind of like my condo right outside my back door and over a culvert is a cemetery from the 1800s. And somebody said, "Are you spooked that there's a cemetery there?" And I said, "No, it's probably the most peaceful place on earth." Yeah. I mean, spirits don't hang around cemeteries. It's boring. They go find living people to hang around so that cemeteries are so peaceful that it's a great place for a picnic.
Yeah. They're also good historically speaking. I haven't done it in a long, long time, but sometimes we would stop at just random cemeteries or going, to families' houses when we had time, and for no other reason, just to see how old some of the gravestones were. So historically speaking, that's fun too. Not like history.
Well, this cemetery, I just moved 4 years ago from Connecticut. I have always been New York, Connecticut, my whole life. And my son and grandchildren are here in Nashville. So I finally said to my son, I think it's time I sell the house and just move. And he said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Nashville." And he said, "Oh, I didn't see that coming." And so I did it 4 years ago. And I looked for a place. It took me a year and a half to sell my house. And I, for that year and a half, I was on multiple listings, checking out what was around and everything. And this condo went up. They decreased the price so that I could afford it the day that I got an offer on my house that I accepted. And I called my son and I said, that's my home. And he looked at it and he said, you want to fly out and take a look? And I said, nope, that's mine. And this is what you tell them. I'll pay, and tell them it's cash. And he said, you know, you're supposed to bargain, Mom. And I said, no, I'm not bargaining. It's mine. That's what I'll pay. So he called me back and he said, they took it. And I said, great. And so I moved and I wandered around to see, everybody has a little patch that they have for garden area and stuff like that. And the thing that I wanted to make sure is why I wanted to be by water, because I've always lived by water, and, you know, Nashville is center of the country. But there is a stream that runs right behind me. So my son calls it a drainage ditch. I call it a stream. And so then I found the cemetery, and people were saying, you're not scared of this, are you? And I said, no, I think it's fabulous. And there was only one tombstone that I could really read. And a friend and I do ancestry work in our spare time. And so we looked up this guy, and his name was Thomas F. Smiley. And turns out he had a sister named Hattie. And this is early 1800s. And Hattie was married to a man named Aaron DeLong, who happens to be a relative of mine.
Wow.
And I called my son and I said, I'm more Southern than you are. And he said, oh. And I said, yeah, I have kin buried in the backyard. So it was kind of like confirmation I'm in the right place.
Yeah, that's cool. You can't get, I mean, that's not as, people always say that, you know, it's a, what's the word? It's a coincidence. I honestly don't believe in coincidences anymore.
I don't either.
There, especially with that tight of a connection, that has to be fate, or whatever you want to call it.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And it was like this is just so cool that I mean, I knew I belonged here, but this kind of confirmed it. Now he's long gone. I don't think he's wandered around at all, but the fact that there's somebody that I'm related to in the backyard is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. Has anything come up in your studies with Skinwalker Ranch at all? I know I've been watching those shows, and I think stuff happens there, but now they have this Beyond Skinwalker Ranch show where they're going to other ranches and getting phenomenon, and it seems like a lot of stuff's happening at ranches.
You know, I just don't know why they don't get bulldozers and plow their way into that bluff, because obviously there's something there. Mm-hmm. Obviously there's a connection there. Obviously they're making a lot of money on all of this. And you know, I know they're saying that there's something in that cliff or bluff or whatever it is. And I've been watching it for years. It's one of those things that I hang in there hoping they'll actually discover something, and the only thing they discover is that they can't discover anything. I would have bulldozed the whole damn thing down to find out what's in there. It looks as though it might be wreckage of a UFO. I think that because they're still getting electronic signals from it, I think there must be something ongoing in there. My suspicion is not that it's aliens, but that it's a government agency that's dark agency that nobody knows about. And I mean, I know they're tunneling. I know they're doing all sorts of things underground, and we aren't hearing about it. So the money from the government is going somewhere, and it's certainly not going into transportation, education, or taking care of our veterans or our homeless.
$500 hammers to do a specific job for airplanes and fighter planes, and $300 toilet seats.
Well, and the fact that you know, we've given money to governments so that they can fight one another, but our population is suffering, and I don't understand why they aren't taking care of home first. And the only thing I can come up with is that and I have totally always believed that that there is a shadow government and then another government and then another government and then another government, that we are just seeing the topmost layers of it who don't know anything about anything. And yet our money is going to covert things that I do believe possibly are of a more global thing. I think that there is something going on globally.
Oh yeah.
And I've always believed that they say that they're pushing us towards a one world government, and I do believe that. But my belief is that the one world government that I'm seeing 1,000 years down the line is a government that has everybody together because we're working together. It's not because it's a dictatorial thing. It's we're coming together for peace, and we're coming together for the betterment of the human species. What I'm seeing now is frightening, but I think that the human condition, we're too barbaric for any alien culture to want to have anything to do with us.
Well, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, there could also be some very, aggressive and vicious alien species out there who are, vastly more technologically advanced than us. So it's a two-way street. What's his name? Dr. Stephen Hawking said that I can't remember the exact words he said, but he said something to the effect that going out to outer space for humans is not going to end well. It's going to be kind of like when modern Europeans came to America. It didn't end well for the Indians. And he meant that. He wasn't trying to be bigoted and make a racist statement.
No,
He meant that if we go out there, we could be
the
instantly. So.
The Europeans invaded this country.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
And they destroyed the religions, they destroyed the people, and they brought all of their diseases with them. I mean, it was awful. So I'm beginning to feel that to be honest with you, that Homo sapiens are the aliens on this planet, that we came after whatever races are living beneath us or whatever. I don't think we're the first intelligent species to evolve on this planet. I think there have been cultures way before us, and what I'm more interested in is what happened before the last ice age, before the last period of time that everything stood still. Most of history today is going back to the end of the ice age, and then how cultures evolved and everything. Well, they were here before that. There have been 5 mass extinctions so far.
Yeah.
And I think there will be more.
Oh yeah, they'll never stop. But the thing is also that we only have recorded history from say 6,000 to 8,000 years ago. Before that, what happened? Nobody knows. There's talk of there was a matriarchal society, that there was some sort of schism between men and women, and then the ice age or maybe even an extinction level event came, and our history is so untold. There are urns, clay pottery I think they were found in Guatemala, but somewhere in Central America, Mexico, Guatemala, one of those countries there. And on those jars are pictures of human beings riding dinosaurs like Triceratopses and Stegosauruses and so on. And on the animals are like circular spiral patterns. So they thought, they're just making these for their kids. Well, why would ancient Mayans make things for their kids that they couldn't have seen according to modern science?
Yeah.
Well, just recently, modern science found a sample of soft dinosaur flesh, and upon the outside, the skin side of the flesh, were spiral patterns.
Those spiral patterns are in Newgrange.
Yes, those exact same kind of pattern. Yes,
they're all over a lot of the glyphs here in this country as well. And that spiral, to me, is saying that we're on a spiral. And if you want to really investigate it, you take your spirit and you go inside yourself to spiral into yourself to be able to utilize the gifts that we have. I mean, you have people like the Buddha who could teleport. I mean, we don't use all that we are.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, science has shoved the spiritual aspect out of the way and, declared itself the master of all you purview. And unfortunately, we've lost contact with the telepathy and the teleportation and the levitation. I mean, all of which are things that we can do if we work with ourselves and the spirit within us.
Yeah, there was a recent I don't know where I heard it. It might have been on one of the ancient alien type shows on documentary forms, but they were talking about why do aliens come to Earth? Why do they? What are they after us for? What do they need us for? We're not as advanced as them. What do they need? And one of the answers was that they thought maybe because the abilities that we have that allegedly have been turned off by said same aliens, we have within us, some of the better ones of us have the ability to be anywhere, everywhere, anytime they want, all the time, if they choose. So
Yeah.
in other words, like the Kwisatz Haderach from Dune kind of thing, where Paul can be everywhere, like an all-seeing God, but not only just see from where he is, but be there as well. So that's an amazing power. If we have it, that would be great to have. I don't know where I'd want to go with it, but
well, there have been.
It would unlock telepathy. I can imagine, as a species as we are now, we are just too infantile to be able to, keep our thoughts from being transmitted to others. I mean, can you imagine going to the grocery store and thinking, wow, she's really pretty over there, and then you think a really dirty thought and she hears you? Well, you're obviously going to get slapped every time you're in public. So I think there's some things in our brain that maybe they're turned off for a good reason until we're at a point evolutionarily that we can handle these devices and powers without, screwing up too bad.
Well, there have been priests who were healers who were able to be seen in several different places at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Saint Germain, famous in Europe for being in different countries at different time spans, and I believe he existed. I think that what we've got inside of us is the capability, but it's a matter of how do you master it. It's very much like being telepathic. It's like being able to read someone's energy field and stuff like that. If it's something, it's like a muscle. If you develop it, it's going to be enhanced and you're going to be able to utilize it. And today we are being so dumbed down by schools and by government. We're not taught to think. We're taught to memorize and react. We're not taught to reason. We're not taught to stretch ourselves and be creative. And because we are turned off by society, to not be creative. The deck of cards that I painted, I decided I was going to do a deck of cards, and I had done personal mandalas for people for a long time. But when I said, this would make a great deck of cards for people to learn from, I taught full time. I taught from 8 to 3. I would get home. I would spend time with my son, and then I would paint from probably 4 or 5 o'clock at night to about 4 in the morning. I'd sleep for 2 hours. I'd get up and I'd do it all again. I had never been more energized. I did not miss one Little League game or concert. I was constantly full of energy, and I was channeling, if you will. I often say that the paintings were through me, not of me, but that capacity we all have. I'm not special, but I used it a lot. And because I used it a lot, it enhanced other aspects of me to be able to see into things for other people as well. And so I think that it's just a matter of, the schools aren't training kids to learn to develop. They're teaching them according to standardized tests so they can do well in the standardized test, but they're not thinking. They're not reasoning. They're not using their creativity at all. And it's the creativity we have within us that is the key to hitting source and to tapping into different dimensions and be able to remote view and do all sorts of stuff like that. And it's easy to do, but it's a matter of saying, I would like to do that. And I'm going to, it's like an instrument. You practice it. And the more you practice, the better you get.
Yeah, I agree. I think the remote viewing thing it's easy to do. You can do it yourself. I mean,
Sure.
I don't know. I think I'd be afraid to try to like go into a top secret facility and try to look up secrets because they probably have mental warriors over there. We're just waiting for people to do that. But I've told people if you want to try it, just start in your bedroom. Leave a nightlight on so you at least before you close your eyes you can get a mental picture of where the things are in your room.
Yeah.
And then close your eyes. And then while your eyes are closed, you have to wait till all the light disappears. When you close your eyes really quick, sometimes you get that like oriental rug pattern.
Yeah.
Wait till all that disappears. And then think of an object in your room that you want to look at. And then point your head and your eyes where you think that object should be based on your last image of the room. And then open your eyes. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be pretty close, but you're not going to get it right away. But if you keep practicing every time you do that and have things move around, don't always pick the same object or put the object, use the same object to look for, but put it in different places every time. And then eventually you'll be like, bang, bang, spot on every time you look.
Yeah. I once borrowed a pattern for something from someone and she said, don't lose it. It's the only copy I've got. So of course I lost it. And it got to the point where I had turned everything upside down. And I would stand in the middle of my room because I knew it was in my room. And I would say, okay, where are you? And I'd close my eyes and I would see my bookcase. And I would empty my bookcase. It wasn't there. It was and I must have done that for maybe 4 or 5 years. And as I was getting ready to move, I emptied the stuff out of my bookcase. And between 2 books was the pattern she was looking for. It was there all the time. I was dead on every time. It's just that I didn't look hard enough.
And what were you saying about Saint Germain? I've seen that name come up in a lot of different places, and one of the biggest places. And I don't know how you feel about this one is at Summit University. I've always liked the books, but I know there's some weird stuff about that. But I don't really know enough about it to get into detail. But what is some of the root of all that Saint Germain? And was that Summit University a big part of that, or is it just in history altogether with him? And just
Saint Germain has been recorded in lots of different time frames in Europe all over. There's a wonderful series of books written about Saint Germain that take him through history. He was a vampire, according to this author. And there's a whole series of books about Saint Germain through time. He was a good vampire. He did good for people. and it's an amazing series of books. But who was it? Saint Germain is the Purple Flame, and trying to remember the author who wrote all the books about it.
Was it like when that God, was it not Dolores? It was. I have the book. Like I have that. Like she did a book. They did a book of Enoch that was like kind of a paperback.
And the Lost Years of Jesus.
Yeah, the Soulless one. That was a weird one. That was Summit University. I know.
Yeah, she and the name will come to me 3 o'clock in the morning.
Where are you at? I didn't know you were at 3 a.m. My goodness.
No, that's that's at what time she will remember. It'll be at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No.
Okay. Holds up right in bed. I remember, but well, I'll be asleep.
It's the same one that took everybody into the caves because the apocalypse was coming. She was a high priestess of Saint Germain.
I'm at their site right now, and I don't see her name. I know it's got to be here somewhere. There's a lighthouse, Summit University, and all that stuff.
Yeah, she was the founder.
Yeah. I'll find it. I'm looking. So you can just
thank you. Yeah, she was a remarkable lady.
Elizabeth Clare Prophet.
Elizabeth Clare Prophet. I met Elizabeth Clare Prophet at a I was working a big expo in New York City, and she was there too. And at the end of it was like a 4-day thing, and it was thousands of people. And after the show closed down at night, we would all break out wine and sit and talk. And one evening, her
That's
booth was right across from mine. And one evening, she and I were sitting on these stairs, and I said, I know that you have the followers that you've surrounded yourself with, and I know that you've made ready in caves for the apocalypse, and you took everybody underground at one point. And I knew people that were in the group that literally had molars pulled out so they didn't have trouble with them after the apocalypse. There wouldn't be dentists around and stuff. They were serious about this. They had, and she's sitting there, and I think we're halfway through the bottle of wine, and I love her books. I just love them
I like them
because
too. Yeah.
she researches beautifully, and she said, "Well, I'll tell you." I said, "The only thing I can figure is you told them all it was a drill, and that's the only way you got them back up above ground again." And she said, "Yeah, the plumbing all went wacky. It smelled like hell down there. It was just, she said, I was hoping for the apocalypse." She said she finally told them that it was a drill, and they all came above ground again. She didn't lose anybody, but and I think they fixed the plumbing, but she uses in at least her book on the lost years of Jesus, and she does talk about there is a temple in Tibet in the Himalayas that has a record of Jesus visiting that particular monastery. But she uses the paintings of Nicholas Roerich in her books for illustrations, and they're so mystical. They are just so beautiful. But she's an amazing lady. I think she's passed on now, but
Yeah.
I think she had dementia or Alzheimer's. Well, same thing probably.
Yeah.
But but when she was functional, she was amazing, and she was just an intelligent woman. She'd done research like unbelievable research, and she was a very interesting lady to talk to. I kind of regret that was before I started my radio show, because I could have gotten her on, and I would have loved to have had her on the show.
Yeah. Do you remember a book, the Soulless one she did? That was kind of a weird one. I can't remember what it was about, but I know that was the title. It's like the Soulless one. I can't remember what it was about, but I used to have it, I think, somewhere. But there were some weird ones. I enjoyed her books a lot. But I'd always heard some kind of culty things, but I don't know
Oh yeah.
enough
Oh,
details.
she had a cult, but it was a good cult. It wasn't a as cults go. It didn't restrict people, but they had to follow her and what she said. And
Violet Flame. That's in some. Is that she the root of that? Like pretty
yes,
much the whole Violent Flame, because that's in everything now.
yeah, oh yeah.
I still do it. Like it's like Saint Germain Violet Flame. Yeah.
Well, but he is a for real physical person that they have records of him in different time frames all over Europe, way back 1600s, 1800s. So suddenly Saint Germain turns up. So and the series of books that were on Saint Germain the vampire make a great deal of sense. And
I've heard of those books. I've never read them, but I've heard something
they
about
they
those.
are so well historically researched that there's a college that uses some of them in some of their history classes because they're historically so accurately depicted.
Wow.
They're good books. They're really good books.
You ever get much info on Merlin? Because I see that kind of conjured up in some of this light worker stuff they talk about. I've always loved Merlin, of course, the movie Excalibur, and read fantasy books about it and stuff. But does that ever come up in any of this?
Yeah, well, have I heard of him? Yes. Do I think that he existed? Yes. I think he was probably a druid of one form or another. I think that time has been very kind to his memory. I mean, they talk about how he helped Stonehenge to be built. I don't believe it, but I do believe he was an authentic character in history. He was a druid, and the druids were famous for being healers. So, and what was fascinating about the druids, they never wrote anything down. they would take the children that had the greatest capacity for memorization and train them in the use of herbs and how to heal things and how to cure things, and it was all in their heads. And then when the Romans came in with writing, the Druids kind of faded away. So, but I think Merlin was a Druid, an ancient Druid.
Yeah, because I think the original, I don't know how to spell it, but the original like Old English or Late English or Middle English word for Merlin was more like Merlin or Merlin, and it was more a title, like something you would give to a park ranger or someone who is out making sure that people aren't hunting the wrong animals incorrectly, and making sure that things are on the up and up. Kind of, not necessarily park police, but tenders of sacred
Well,
forest kind of areas.
when you think about it, first of all, he was a healer, and I do believe the element of hypnotism was involved in and utilization of things that would be hallucinogenic were
Mhm.
definitely not, they were utilized constantly, so that if he had all of those kind of faculties that he had available to him, I can see how they would think that he could work miracles, because certainly, with hypnotism, of course, you can make somebody think something is real when it's not. You can, I'm not sure about convincing a woman that a man coming into her bed is her husband and it's not, but that was the Arthurian thing.
Yeah,
So,
that's the Arthur legend, right? Well, I mean, but not even just Arthur legend. I mean, Zeus did it, Apollo did it. All the gods were able to do this kind of
but
illusionary thing.
when you think of, you know, the human species, if we don't understand something, we attribute it to God or a God, and therefore, just because we don't understand an ability or a talent that they've got to be a God. Well, that's not so. There are people that have healing capacities that are just phenomenal. Look at Reiki. Reiki is energy work, is using one person's energy to help another person's energy go through or over or around something that's going on. In the past, that would have been considered a miracle, and yet it's just a form of healing. So, yeah, I think Merlin existed. I think he was wise, and he might have even been from another dimension. I'll say that that's a possibility. But and he probably went back to that dimension when humanity got too rough.
Well, I certainly don't disagree with that. The Islamic Bible says that the Ifrit are made of smoke and fire. And so how do you have a being that's made out of fire that lives and breathes and talks to you? So I mean, the, our ancient history is wrought with all kinds of weird things that we can't. Uh, Alexander the Great was. There are two stories with him and UFOs. One where he goes to attack, I think, not Crete, but somewhere near Turkey. When he gets to this country, a bunch of they said shields, like circular shields. They used circular shields at that time.
Yeah.
Flew over the city and shot beams of energy or lightning bolts at his elephants and killed his entire army of elephants. So he left. Later on, the king of that country that he tried to attack was trying to come and attack Alexander the Great later on, and somewhere near probably right at the bottom of Turkey, right on the far east coast of the Mediterranean. They were on the beach, and the stories from both sides say that a bunch of shields flew overhead and zapped lightning bolts on I think it was the Persian army, and killed them all and left the king alive so that Alexander could go up and like cut his throat or do something to him, whatever it was. And these are recorded in history.
Well, talking about that, what about Operation High Jump, where Admiral Byrd took all of those ships to the Antarctic,
Yep.
and the shields came up out of the water and attacked his ships, and he came back real fast.
Some people call it the final battle of World War II. It's alleged that the craft that attacked he had like 39 or 40 vessels. He had a big fleet, including an aircraft carrier and some destroyers.
Oh yeah.
This wasn't a play toy army. This was a real navy. And they lost several ships and several hundred men, and they ran back to Argentina or Chile, with their tails between their legs. But the craft were allegedly described as what are known as the Haunibu #4 model, and they all had Nazi plus signs and swastikas on them.
Well, when you look at Admiral Berg's diary from going down into Middle Earth, they spoke German there, and they had swastikas on their
Right.
vehicles that were down there as well. And that's why I think there's still such fascination with Antarctica, because I do feel that there is a community of some sort there.
It's illegal to go there.
Well, yeah,
Why?
and there are no fly zones. There's a lake that never freezes over that is a no fly zone.
There's the whole like middle of the continent is a no fly zone for our military. They're not allowed to fly over it.
No, I believe there is still a very vibrant culture there that certainly has evolved over time and doesn't want to have anything to do with humanity the way it is now. I think that there are natural streams and everything else underground there, and they that may be what Berg thought was Middle Earth.
That's what I'm thinking. A highly advanced civilization could easily carve out a fairly solid dome underneath all that ice and live there unknown for millions of years.
And frankly, if I was underground and it was all peaceful and everyone was sharing and loving and kind and everything, I wouldn't want to come up either.
Yeah, or let anyone in.
but you've seen of late over the last couple of years, just about every major politician has made a journey to Antarctica. And why? There is nothing there.
There really isn't, but it is still illegal to go there on your own. You have to get like special permissions, and there's only a few governments that even have a stake on the ground there.
Mm-hmm.
And
they're on the edge. They're not in.
They're on the edges, on the very edges, correct. And but they're all, spread out fairly well. From both coasts, from east to west side of it. But I want to say like maybe 19, 20 camps, nothing more than that.
Yeah, and they're primitive. But you can even get closer to us. In Alaska, there's a mountain that has inside of it a black pyramid.
I've heard about that, yeah.
And apparently there are people in there trying to get into the black pyramid. There's all sorts of stuff there. We haven't heard anything about it, and yet it's there. It's there every now and then you see an article about the Black Pyramid in Alaska, but it's so far in that it's so remote that people don't go there. There's no way to get there. It's constantly under snow, and yet I've seen pictures, so I know it's there.
Yeah, the pictures are pretty cool, but they've also done some infrared searching through the Amazon, through that thick forest, and they recently have found a pyramid there that is buried under the foliage. That and there's also one on Mars as well. But the pyramid they found in South America is big enough that you can fit all three big pyramids from Giza inside of it.
Yeah, we've just scratched the surface of what cultures before the last ice age, or even before that, created and left for us to figure out. But we haven't even scratched the surface of the planet, to be honest.
No. If we're talking scientifically explorations, we're probably of the 30% that is land, we probably have 15-20% fully excavated.
Oh, absolutely.
The rest of it's buried under vast forests and deserts. And then if you want to talk about the entirety of the planet altogether as 100%, because we're not, the land parts we're on, it's only 30%. That's all we've discovered. And add the water at 100%, it's maybe more like 1% that we know about this planet. We know nothing. We know more about our moon than we do about our planet.
Oh, you mean that hollow thing in the sky that rings when you drop something on it?
Spaceship that is perfectly placed in a circular orbit where all other things have a elliptical orbit. Yeah, it's unnatural, and it rings like a bell. If you drop a lem on it, it rings like a bell for hours.
Well, and when you look at it, you see all the pock marks on it, but none of them are that deep. And
they all have a uniform depth, yes.
Yeah, so it's kind of like it's paper mache. I mean, it's amazing.
I've alluded to the fact because on the far side, I don't want to say the dark side, but because it does get lit, just not when we're able to see it.
Yeah.
It always faces one side of the moon always faces us. So in order to spin a planet, to calculate where it always faces its mother planet always the same time, takes math that we're not capable of. On the far side, there's a big crater that kind of makes it look like the Death Star, like it's a big honking space gun. Maybe that's why the aliens are here, because there's a big space gun parked in our orbit.
Well, there's also I recently saw a picture of it's a strange theory, but that Noah, his ship was a spaceship, and he did have the DNA of all the animals, and that spaceship is parked on the dark side of the moon, and there's a picture of it.
There is a picture of a 7 mile long spaceship on the far side of the moon that they suspect has been there for 1 million years, and that the spaceship is probably older than that. And allegedly there was Apollo mission stopped at 17 was the last one. So allegedly the last 3 missions, which are already paid for and ready to go, were the modules and equipment was moved to Edwards Air Force Base, and they were launched as top secret missions with the military as 18, 19, and 20. And allegedly on 20, they found that spaceship. They went to it and they found an alien. They brought it back. But there's some iffiness about that video. But the videos of the alien finder, they're pretty well done. If this guy faked this alien, these guys, it looks like a documentary where they actually fly from a spaceship. It's pretty well Apollo-like. It's very, very well done. When they land on the moon, it looks very real. They walk through the moon, through like an old city. Then they go into the spaceship and find this Asian lady with 3 eyes and dreadlocks. And if it's a dummy and special effects makeup, these guys should be in Hollywood making money. It's a really, really intriguing video, but it probably is fake.
Well, I think it leads us to believe that everything that's been told to us is not true. So, and that's what's scary. I mean, but science fiction, I think, has sort of not treated aliens well. I think that so many of the aliens are more humanoid than anything else, and they're not these drooling, frightening things that the movies have frightened us with. But after 1947, with Roswell, they started to make aliens something to be feared, and
the
now
movies of the 50s were definitely of that nature.
And so there had to be a reason for it. And frankly, we can't even use the word alien any longer. We have to use the word extraterrestrial, because of course we have aliens coming across our borders. Yeah. So you can't confuse the two.
Right.
So it's kind of like, I just think after 47, they've been trying to make us fearful of something that is going to ultimately happen, and we shouldn't be fearful of it. I think they're here. I think we are the aliens, to be honest with you. I think we came, Homo sapiens came to this planet through a dimensional doorway of some sort, that we didn't originate from this planet, and that there were already species here, and there may have been cross whatever, but I believe that we came through a doorway to this planet. I don't know why, and the way what we've done to the planet is horrific.
We've actually talked about that on the other show that I'm on, and it's suspected that we may have come from either what is now the asteroid belt, we think was a living planet. We think there were 4 living planets: Venus, Earth, Mars, and this 5th planet, which is now the asteroid belt. So we may have come from Mars, may have come from the 5th. Something came through the solar system a long time ago and broke that 5th planet up, whether it was something that Jupiter captured or something that's part of our solar system that only comes through every so many thousands or millions of years, whatever it is, and it destroyed that planet. And then there's talk of exodus from Mars to us. Velikovsky, a Russian Jewish scientist, wrote a book, something in chaos, Ages in Chaos, or something to that effect, where he speculates that the bulk of Earth's water was siphoned off of Mars by a large space body that flew past Mars. There was a cataclysm there. There's a huge gash canyon across Mars. It looks like an electrical storm or a lightning bolt on the ground, and it's deeper than the Grand Canyon and long enough that I think you can fit 96 Grand Canyons in it, length to length.
Wow.
But he speculates that this, whatever came through the solar system, broke up the fifth planet, skewed the orbits of both Mars and Earth because they both wobble funny than the other planets. The atmosphere of Mars was basically destroyed. The magnetic atmosphere of Mars was completely destroyed, making it, the full attack of the sun from that. But that's what the speculation is. And scientists at first they didn't like his theory, but now the way that our moon they think was created is his theory, and what happened to Mars with the water being siphoned off and brought here, they think is also the likely cause of how Earth got its water. Interesting. Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, just think if we could go back in time and even just 100 years and record, a historical event. Go back, maybe 1,000 years or 10,000 years, 65,000 years. Record the actual not elephants, the dinosaurs. Right. Imagine the money you could. Well, I wouldn't want to do it for money, but just imagine the looks on kids' faces when they can see actual real dinosaurs instead of Steven Spielberg's digital ones, which are also pretty cool.
Oh yeah. Are you familiar with the Rendlesham Forest?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And you've spoken, I guess, to Jim Patterson.
I haven't, but I've seen all the interviews.
But I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, very familiar with it.
I think what is fascinating is that when he touched and I think it was it was definitely not a spaceship, but I do think that it was a more like a time capsule that was sent back, and he was downloaded with binary code that was when it was interpreted said something to the effect of the human condition is worth keeping an eye on it, and the origin of the module was 8100. Mm-hmm. Which, at first I thought, isn't this great? We're going to be around in 8,100 years. And then I thought, wait a minute, it says the human, whatever. That does not suggest that it was a human that sent the time capsule back.
Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah.
But it's fascinating that, it's sort of like you see all these lights in the sky, and I don't think they're spaceships. I think they're like little droids almost. I don't think that they're manned is what I'm trying to say. I think a great many of especially to go back to Skinwalker Ranch, the stuff that's going on there, I don't think that those lights that they see coming and going are manned at all. So I think that, and at this point in time, when you see an unidentified flying vehicle, you don't know if it's alien or if it's Russian or if it's Japanese or if it's Swedish.
Stuff, yeah.
I mean, it could be ours. I mean,
but it could be ours. Yeah, but I mean, you're absolutely right. Some of them could be, drone-like things. I saw, like you, I want to call it a droid, but it was more of like just a cylinder or a trash can sized thing that was probably, when I first saw it, it was not more than 150 feet off the ground, but it wasn't directly above me. It was several blocks away in Savannah, Georgia. And I was on my way to work, so I couldn't stay and watch the whole thing. But I was watching it as my house was 1 block away. So I didn't have far to walk and watch this thing. But as soon as I cleared the tall buildings, I was like, that's not a normal plane. And it wasn't spinning, and it didn't make any noise. And I just like black and gray. Then I walked into work. I clocked in. I was like, yeah, there's a UFO out front. And they're like, bullshit. And I'm like, go look. So we all walked outside. I'm like, and it was further away now, but you can still see the basic shape was a little cylinder, like a trash can in space or in the atmosphere. And everyone's like, huh, what's that? I'm like, I don't know. I went back inside.
There was a science fiction book a long time ago that I read. I think it was probably in junior high school when I read it. But the premise of it was, people were searching for the source of humanity. Where did we come from? And they ended up discovering that there was a spaceship that was traveling by. And are you familiar with boats at all?
Boats, yes, very familiar with boats, particularly
Okay.
U.S. Navy.
Okay, so we used to have cabin cruisers and stuff like that, and my father would always wait to get into the middle of the sound and then dump our holding tank. And not the right thing to do, but that's what he did, and that's what all the boats did.
Mm-hmm.
But that it was a spaceship that was traveling by that dumped its holding tank, and that we are the result of the flora and fauna that came from the extraterrestrials that were on that spaceship.
So you're thinking they scooped up all the critters on their planet they didn't want anymore, and they're like, "Oh, there's an unopened, there's an empty planet." Boom.
No, it was their bathrooms.
Oh,
It was their leftovers that they dumped, and it fell onto the planet, and the planet was fertile enough so that anything would grow, and so eventually we grew out of what was dumped out of a spaceship, which in some cases sometimes makes sense. I'd hate to think it. I'd rather think we're interdimensional and we came through a portal, and but sometimes the weirdest things are the things that are the actual truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do say fiction is stranger than the truth, or whatever that phrase is. Truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah,
is that the phrase I'm looking for. Yeah, and it's true. I have to agree with it.
Well, it's you sometimes sit and wonder, where did I come from? Why am I here? And what is the purpose of life? Questions that everybody has and ponders from time to time. And the reality is we'll never know. And when...
But the big proof for me was, look at all mammals, all of them, almost all of them, except for some of the special breeds that we've made, like the Abyssinians and the hairless cats and dogs. Every natural born mammal on this planet is 85-95% covered in fur. And even the parts of their fur that isn't where they have actual skin, they don't get sunburn like we do.
No.
We don't have any natural protection from the sun, our native God-given light source.
And
it burns the hell out of us.
And yet there are cultures, especially in the Himalayas, especially in the Arctic, that they have grown to be far more tolerant of their environment, so that they can stand the cold longer than you or I can, or that the atmosphere is something they have learned to deal with, and so they know how to chew on the cocoa plants or whatever it is they chew on, so that they have adapted to their environment. And so, when you think of that, and then you think of, whales are mammals. Yeah. They, and yet they live in the sea.
I should have directed that to all land-based mammals with the fur, but I forgot about them. But you're right about, especially the coca leaves in South America. The native Indians there, they roll them up with is it coffee beans? I forget what they roll them up with other plants, and they do it like a tobacco thing. But if you or I or Jeff were to go down there and do it, it would mess us up so bad we'd have to go to the hospital and we might die. So they've accumulated immunities to that, and I think we all have. There's a group in China, not a group, but up in the mountainous regions, there's tribes of Chinese that live like the natives in South America, kind of out of the, off the grid, but they eat their food directly out of a boiling pot. They don't take it out of the boiling pot and put it into a bowl and wait a few minutes for it to cool. They take it directly out of a boiling pot and go. I've seen the video. I'm like, but they've adapted to the point where they can eat scalding hot food.
But their bodies have adapted.
Right, exactly. And if we were to do it, we'd go to the hospital and have, third-degree burns on our tongue.
Have you guys? Are you familiar at all with the Dropa stones?
Yes, very familiar with those.
Heard of them.
What is your opinion of them?
My assessment is that they were some sort of kind of like a record, not just a record of the Dropa's lives, but they were records. Like you could play there's some kind of device, like a record player that you could get
Yeah.
either audio or video from. I think they were real technological items. I think a alien species crash landed with an irreplaceably, they could not repair their machinery, had to stay here, bred in with the locals, and again, also in the mountains of China. And then the Chinese government found them out, and they have them, and that's how come they are almost as advanced as us with their fighter planes. Their Generation 5 fighter planes, we now have Generation 6, so we still have air superiority, but I think that's where that's their Roswell. This is the Chinese Roswell where they got
I did some research on them, and they say, from what I read, that the characters that are in the grooves of the Dropa stones had been translated to explain that they were on a spaceship that was crashed, and that was, as you said, impossible to heal, fix, whatever, and that there is today still a Dropa tribe in that area.
Yes.
And that these people are only 3 feet high.
They're average 3 to 4 feet tall. Yeah, no higher than that. They're like the Chinese hobbits or dwarves, if you will.
Yeah, and they still, to this day, their eyes are different.
Their eyes are less. The Chinese have a skin fold. I forget what they call it, but they have that, but it's not as prominent as in native Chinese. Often they have blonde hair, and their skin is been described as either ghost white or sheet white.
Yeah, and because they are so small, they haven't really mixed in with the local cultures. They've stayed pretty genetically pure from the time that the ship crashed. And it's amazing that nobody's heard about them. And it bothers me. Here's something that not only it's a great story, but the tribe's still there.
And they're probably not all 100% alien Dropa anymore, but I'm sure they have some outstanding stories. No one's gone to talk to them. They've been briefly talked about on venues like this, Ancient Aliens, and other documentaries. But I guess you'd have to break through the red tape of the Chinese government to get to them. But this is important stuff. If this is a legitimate story that space creatures crash landed and could not leave our planet and eventually interbred with whatever locals they did and are still alive today, or their ancestors are still alive today, that's historic news. That needs the whole planet should know.
Well, that's like I said, I think they've been gathering DNA from everybody for a very long time. And I don't know what they're looking for, but they're looking for something.
Yeah, I've come up with that speculation on other shows. Like, what are they doing? Something like the Bene Gesserit clan in the Dune series, the Dune books, where they're specifically taking different houses and interbreeding them and intermixing them to get a specific result. There's something to that. They wouldn't. The aliens who are messing with our DNA right now wouldn't be doing so still if they had found what they're looking for, or if they had gotten whatever their ultimate goal is to be. And they allegedly have been doing this for, according to Sitchin, 500,000 years.
Well, if you look at if you look at, first of all, 23andMe, Ancestry.com, everybody donated spit. And then when COVID came, they were doing swabs, but I don't think they were looking for anything of the virus. I think they were going for the DNA samples. And when you look at, they can't explain where Rh negative came from,
right?
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And so they're creating a database from which they can, in many ways, create viruses that would wipe out a certain element of the population in a heartbeat that wouldn't touch the others.
Well, it's amazing you just mentioned 23andMe and the other one, the other 23andMe place. I forget.
Ancestry.com.
Ancestry. Thank you so much. Weird, I just made a correlation there. My friends that live across the state line in Maryland in Hagerstown, they all of them, there's 3 of them live in the house. They all had the shots.
Uh-huh.
But they also, all 3 of them did the 23andMe thing.
Huh.
They've had all the boosters. And they've taken all the necessary precautions to not get COVID. Yet they've all had it 3 times, even with all the up-to-date boosters. I haven't done any of the 23andMe, Amazon.com, gene stuff, none of that stuff. I didn't get it. And I worked on the front lines. I worked in a retail store that was deemed an essential store as a home improvement center. So, if your toilet exploded and you can't go to work, you have to go to the bathroom. So you have to be able to come to a store like ours and get a new toilet. So we were essential business. So we had people in our stores throughout the whole 2-3 years things. And I never once got it, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But everybody I know who's had the shot, everyone has had it at least once, and they had the shot. And I'm thinking maybe we ought to do a survey, see how many of those people, did you get the shot? Did you get all the boosters? 23andMe? Boom. That's why you got it.
Yeah.
I know.
So you're right about that.
I had to get to be with my grandchildren. My son and daughter-in-law were, protective, and so I had to have a shot. I got the 1 shot, and when I went for it, my son took me, and I said to him, "Did you see them put the needle in my arm?" And he said, "Yeah, I saw you get the shot." Now I'm a delicate flower. If a mosquito looks at me, I get a wilt. There was no hole. There was no redness. There was no nothing. And I swear to you, I got saline. I didn't get a shot. I know I've got the card. I sat there and got shot with something, but and I have not had COVID at all. And I'm 80 years old.
Did you get the Johnson & Johnson one or one of the others?
I got the Johnson & Johnson one.
That's why. It wasn't an RNA. All the other 3 were RNAs.
All right, we better get off this one. You know how they get on watching. It's okay.
Well,
we haven't said anything bad, but I know
okay, as long as you don't mention the 3-letter alphabet soup, any 3-letter alphabet soup organization. If you mention any of those organizations, they usually bump us off YouTube.
Yeah,
I've been bumped a couple of times too. So
yeah, and basically, one thing I want to say is the main reason I do the show, I've been doing it 17 years, is I went through testicular cancer at 17, and then a few years later, my dad died, and I start to see UFOs over every house I moved to. I saw different kinds of beings, and there was one time when I was doing this, I was having trouble getting interviews, and I said a prayer and had a UFO sighting of some red energy type weird things, and I yelled. And my brother and nephew came outside, and somehow that led me to being on a radio show and talking about it. And then the next thing you know, I was interviewing Stanton Friedman and Nick Pope and Nick Redfern and all these big people I saw in documentaries that I would never thought I would even, who would give me the time of day. Lloyd Pye, the Star Child skull, he lives in the Panhandle. It seemed like it was connected to the sighting. Now, I don't know for sure, but it seemed like aliens gave me the hookup or some kind of boost or something in that sighting. That's when I knew there's something here positive that
someone gave your
wants us to raise consciousness. And I think, that's why you do the show and to do that. But I also think there may be some nefarious things here, like on Skinwalker Ranch. It seems like every time they try to do something, messes with them or makes them sick and things like that. So there may be forces here that, aren't out for our best interests, or like a lot of people think it's fallen angels or the devil or whatever. I don't know.
I saw a UFO when I was in college, and that's what set me on the spiritual pathway. It was like I was invited. Yeah. And, look into this, go into this. And then of course I was married to Patrick Cook, and he wrote the Bible UFO Connection, and he had Matrix Radio for years. And a lot of the ancient alien people, he was connected with them. So, and he was actually on Ancient Aliens as well. So you know, it was really funny because he had never seen a UFO, and here I was, I'd seen one, and you know, he was jealous, uh, but it was really kind of exciting, and you know, he opened a door for me in many ways that,
Yeah.
you know, I have an in to a lot of people that I never would have had it not been for Patrick being my husband. He's dead. He's not ex. He's just dead. Um, but I think that there is a sense of being invited. And when I saw the UFO, I was in I was in college, and it was really amazing because it landed on the baseball field and it swooped up and it went right over my dorm, and there were tons of people that saw it or were there, and there were people standing right next to me that didn't see it, and then there were people who were hiding under beds and in closets and screaming, and you know, the world, you know, it's coming to an end and they're going to come and get us, and it was stupid. But and then I saw it, and all I could think of was, how cool is that? You know, I want to know more. I'd like a ride. You know, not sure I'd take a ride today, but at the time there was no fear in me,
Yeah.
and yet somewhere, and so I have a kind of opinion that the people that see them, their consciousness, their level of awareness is such that they
It's on
will,
a different level. Yeah.
yeah, that it's something that they would want to experience, want to know more about. And then there are others that never see anything because they're just not ready to accept the fact that there may be something beyond this realm.
What do you think about the radiation stuff at Skinwalker Ranch? I'm always trying to figure that out. Like, what is going on with that? Just the burns, the going to the hospital, the Tic Tac guys that have their own UFO equipment that saw, you know, in the government, the Pentagon videos were out there. They got sick. Like, what's making people sick out there? I mean, is there something buried? Something you would think Bigelow would have done, took it off and did whatever to it, you know, before when he was there. So obviously there's something still there, but I just find it hard to believe that he didn't rape the place before, you know, he sold it.
Well, let's say he didn't. I mean, he may not have like dug it out of the ground, but he may have figured out what it is. Maybe he went in from underground, like they are with the tunnels.
I don't think it's alien technology because of the radiation. We use radiation, and we use nuclear, you know, stuff for submarines and for all sorts of stuff. Yeah, so I think it's a deep governmental area, and the government doesn't know about the government beneath us, because I don't believe that any of, if you look at the Billy Meyer material, they don't use nuclear power. They use magnetic and stuff like that. So I think the fact that there's nuclear energy, you know, being seeping out or infecting people and giving them burns or whatever, that I do think that it has to do with, it has to be something our government or a government is utilizing, and whatever's crashed there or whatever is an experiment that went horribly wrong at some point in time, and they just buried it as deeply as they could.
Yeah, it could be a, you know, nuclear waste from various nuclear weapons manufacturing. Who knows what's under there?
I mean, that's what we did. Isn't that what we did? Isn't that what we did with a lot of our nuclear waste? We just buried it.
Yep, just buried underground, and it could be that. I mean, I'd have to see what their exact symptoms are. But I mean, if you get too close to, you know, radiation trash, you know, your skin can fall off, your hair can fall off, you can sometimes you get into the area and immediately begin to vomit. So if those are the symptoms they're having, then it's quite possible.
I would go more for a nuclear dump than an alien anything.
Yeah. I would love to bring a Geiger counter there. I'll bet you it takes off 1,000.
They use it, and they use Geiger counters, yeah, and there are many times that they have to exit fast because the radiation is so high.
Too high. Yeah. Well, that's it then. Yeah.
And I would think that since Bigelow actually sold it, that he was satisfied that there was nothing there that was,
Or
profit.
whatever was there, he got what is, and there's nothing left. Yeah.
Or
I heard something that he there was some kind of situation. He was on a radio show talking about it, and I'd have to find it. It's on YouTube. But something about the forces there wanted them to meet him like in person, and they wanted to set it up, and something was going to happen, and he got spooked and like got scared or something. And that was like in some interview that he actually did. I'd have to really listen to it to give you details. But what about what were you going to say, Barbara? Sorry if I stepped on
I don't know. It'll come back.
you.
I just, it was my train. It was a local. It'll be back. My train of thought. No, I think that what's there is dangerous in that, if it is, they said that some of the material they pulled up was the kind of material that we put on our shuttles, which would be something that would protect the nuclear whatever. They pull up a green like jelly type thing, almost like something that you would put over something to protect it from, outside energy. I'm more thinking that it's nuclear waste than anything else, and they keep finding a signal and I can't remember what it is megahertz wise, but that seems to be around there. I think the drones that we see going in and out are ours. I think that the government is definitely watching them very, very carefully. So that I think it is government. I think it's our government. I don't think it's so I think, isn't that funny? They've milked this for how many seasons so far, and all these guys are trying to dig into a trash heap.
Have you got into the Beyond Skinwalker Ranch where they're going to the other ranches and having similar kind of stuff happening, like Bradshaw and all that? Then they had Chris Bledsoe on there with the X-Men neurology equipment, summoning them with Colonel John Alexander. The biggest thing about the show is all the government spooks there. That's more creepier than the phenomenon. There's so many government spooks on these shows. You're like, what are they up to?
Well, it isn't necessarily the government that we see. It's the government that's pulling the strings on the government that we see. And there's another government beneath them and another government beneath or above, whichever way you want to go. I think that there are so many different levels that are between us and others at the center of all this that you and I will never see, whatever it is. And
the information is so highly compartmentalized that even the U.S. government doesn't know the whole story, and they're scared out of their minds.
Yeah, and the fact that they're surveying what they're doing at Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, if that is nuclear waste from 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, of course, that's before the bomb. I don't know, when is it? Yeah. I mean,
they started putting the bomb together in 42, 43-ish. So by 45, they had it. So, 80 years isn't that far off. Yeah.
And it looks like that there may have been natural caverns there that stuff was stored in.
Yeah.
And then they did landslides to cover it all up.
And there are also on the planet, there are some spots where there are natural nuclear reactors, sort of. They're like caverns, but all the rock inside is uranium. And if you were to walk in there, it's toxic for you, it'd kill you. But they do happen around the planet. So it might be one of those kind of things. But even then, you could get up the right kind of suits and go in there and mine the uranium and sell it for pretty good profit if you own the property.
In the meantime, Skinwalker Ranch is doing just fine.
They're doing fantastic with television advertising.
Well, it's the same thing as with Oak Island.
Yeah, I was about to say, Oak Island was the same thing. They kept digging in this hole for how many seasons? 8, 9, 10, whatever it was, is.
I mean, I don't believe they're going to find anything, but I'm addicted to it. And it's been 11 years, 12 years, something like that. And I have watched as they have now, as far as archaeological stuff, they've brought up a lot of fascinating stuff. Mm-hmm. But is the Ark of the Covenant there? Hell no. Is the candlestick from the Jewish temple there? I don't believe so. Pirates may have left some stuff there, but and they found a human body in one of the pits, but and I keep watching because I know as soon as I stop watching, they will find something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the human body was as expected because that was the last person that was to go down there that died.
Yeah.
Probably. So.
Well, they haven't really brought anything up they could test. I mean, they're doing carbon dating on stuff and taking it back to the 1200s, so that island has had activity on it for thousands of years.
Yeah.
But it's also in an area where they did a lot of copper mining. So the fact that if there were tunnels there easily, but I can't explain the traps and everything, the different tunnels that go in to put seawater in I don't know why that was created. They have the coconut husks that have surrounded the tunnels so that seaweed doesn't clog them. I mean, in order to do that kind of construction, you had to be highly trained. So the only people I can think of that had the technology would have been the Templars.
The shaft is so well constructed that we in this modern day, even with our excavating techniques, we can't undo whatever they did.
Yeah,
we can't unbuild it.
And they haven't brought in. I mean, to be fair, the original people that were there did pull up a cross that was just beautiful. It was solid gold. It was gorgeous. Wow. I mean, but these guys have got an iron cross that takes you back to medieval times. So
yeah, and they have a handful of Roman coins as well. Didn't they find those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
how do Roman coins wind up in basically Canada? Hello, somebody came across from Europe.
Well, there's one of the Roman legions was missing, and they think they came to the USA and they were here. There are up the Mississippi, I believe there are stone edifices that are of Roman construction.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. I knew the Vikings were here a very long time ago, and even before then, the ancient proto race, the Homon people, basically become the Japanese and Koreans. They've been visiting the the west coast of America since 12,500 BCE. Their genetic patterns that are from Japan and Korea in North American, South American, and Central American native Indians, their DNA is closer to the Asian haplogroup than they are to the European. And I proved that in college in 1993. Have
you ever had Rick Osman on yet?
No, I don't think so.
He's written a great book called, I think it's Cave of
the one that's doing the pyramid in Europe? Dr. Osman? Oh, no. Okay.
Rick Osman is a local fellow. And he's written a wonderful book, Cave of the Bear Clan. It's something I can't remember, but he's done a lot of research as to the constructions and things like that are in up and down the Mississippi and stuff. And apparently there was a Roman legion that disappeared, and the legion itself disappeared, but the leader of the legion went back to Rome, and he was rewarded with high honors, and he was made the governor of Petra at the time. And the theory is that the whole Roman legion, with all of their followers and everybody else, came to the U.S. and integrated into the area. And that would explain the Roman coins. That would explain the construction of some of the Roman edifices along the Mississippi that were there to, have to pay tribute to in order to go up or down the river. And it would explain the Roman coins, and it would also explain how when they sent the two guys out to the West Coast, the president at the time had them looking for Indian tribes that spoke Gaelic, because if that was the case, then the Pope's the right that the Pope gave to the explorers to come into this country was that they could claim whatever they wanted so long as they were not Christian. And if they found Indian tribes that spoke Celtic, that would mean that it was the Celts that really were the owners and discoverers of America. And so when we bought America from the British, after borrowing money from France, it was illegal that they didn't have the right to sell us the country or to free the country. But Rick Osmond's book is fascinating. You should check it out.
Okay,
I found him on YouTube, Legend of the Golden Bear and things like that. Yeah. I'll hunt it down for sure.
I have his contact information if you want it, and I'd be happy to share it with you.
That would be great. We had scheduling's been weird. We had almost 5 cancellations from family emergencies, which is just things are crazy. So,
wow.
One of the Aaron Deese broke the curse, so to speak, because he got to do the show when at first he thought he was going to cancel because his child was not feeling well, but he luckily got to do the show. But the weirdest part of that was a guy named Jim Willis, who writes near-death experience books, was supposed to come on a Friday.
He died.
Well, he passed away the day he was going to do the show.
Oh my!
Before earlier in the day, he's having heart stuff. But I had never interviewed him before, didn't know him, but I was looking forward to interview him, and it kind of creeped me out.
No, I've had him on, I think, 4 or 5 times, and he was a really good interview.
Yeah, hopefully in another realm we'll hook up and do an interview one day. But that was kind of eerie, but sad too, because I know he was excited to do the interview. I was excited for it, but
it's gonna be a good show.
Just that he had written a near-death book and then checks out before he gets here. But
kind of, it wasn't near; it was definitely death. So
that was crazy. But hopefully he's I'll hook up and get an interview in the heavenlies when the time comes in our light bodies. But prepare a place, Jim. But go
ahead.
And so what do you got coming up? We got about 7 minutes. So you want to give your links out? Where's the best place? And what do you got?
BarbaraDeLong.com is my website, and that has links to everything. To the YouTube channel, it has links to the new deck and the app, and the link, the site for that is cosmicdeckofinitiation.com. The YouTube channel is BarbaraDeLong.com. So we've got about 800 shows up there, and we're climbing with subscribers. It's really, Mark and I are having a lovely time counting numbers. And so it's all growing. It's all, right at the moment, the latest thing out is the app for the Cosmic Deck, which is really exciting for me. I never imagined I'd be able to get something like that done, but that material is on cosmicdeckofinitiation.com.
I put that link in the YouTube and Facebook messengers so people can see those.
Some things I've noticed, I've heard about is my planet Saturn, which I'm a Capricorn's going backwards. So I got that till November. Great. And that sounds like fun. And then also I saw some things saying the Earth's core is spinning backwards. I don't know how true that is, but it's like on Microsoft News and stuff. But basically saying the Earth and the core spinning backwards. It's like everything just seems crazy.
Well, the Native Americans are saying that the sky is wobbling, and we do go through pole shifts on a regular basis. But the North Star, is shifting and changing, and when those shifts happen, sometimes 800 miles is changed. So, and theoretically, the poles are supposed to swap every now and then too. So. It's we're at a time and place where even the ground we have underfoot isn't as stable as we would like it to be.
We're basically there's a liquid ball of magma. This is liquid, my fist, and this is what we stand on. And it's just sitting on there, and we're not sure, but they think there's two ways that the pole shift happens. Either the poles are like this, you got the north and the south, and they just go flip, and they flip, which would be fine, nobody gets hurt. But what the most scientists think is that when it shifts, this part that we stand on, where the water is and all that, just goes whoosh, in one movement and flips over or flips to the side, does something. And when that happens, the winds will become to the point of like 7,000 miles an hour, something like that, because we're spinning at like 17,000 miles an hour, and then we're going around the sun at 18,000 miles an hour or whatever. So it could be a very deadly thing if it goes in that direction.
But couldn't it also be that it's the mantle stays constant and the core shifts?
If the core underneath were to move, it could certainly cause it, without question, worldwide volcanic activity and worldwide earthquakes,
which we're seeing.
But if so, the planet spins counterclockwise about 7,000 miles an hour, and the Earth spins the part that we're on. This part, it's also going that fast. We're spinning around 7,000 miles an hour. If we all of a sudden flip like that, those winds we're going the opposite direction. Those winds will destroy all of humanity. At least every tall building on the planet will be knocked over. Well, it won't be pretty.
Isn't even the Gulf Stream shifting? I mean, I look at the weather all the time because I'm in, Tornado Alley here, kind of, and so I'm looking at the weather constantly, and I've noticed that the Gulf Stream is shifting and moving in new directions, and so it's kind of like, wait a minute, this isn't the way it used to be. So there are major weather things that are happening. We've had more earthquakes in Tennessee of late than we've had in the last decade. There are volcanoes becoming active that haven't been active in a very long time. There's a lot of things happening with weather, and part of it is human manipulation, which is, they can start something, but it gets out of control. So
yeah. And I'm surprised the plates haven't shifted yet. Like, that would be really creepy if the plates shifted. I used to live in Tennessee at one point in Kingsport and had a lot of weird UFO stuff there. Like, they were military, but it was weird. Like, I saw a giant ship in the sky that looked like something from a sci-fi movie and things docking in it. It was a lot of weird stuff up there. And then when I searched it and other people seeing weird stuff, that's always when you see something and then you go try to search to see if other people and then their stuff starts popping up and you feel like you're in the next Files episode. That's always fun. Yeah. But we got 2 minutes. It's been great, Barbara. Barbara DeLong, everybody. We appreciate you returning and always a pleasure. Thanks so much. It was a great show. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we got next week. Oh goodness, let me not mess up any names. So let me pull up the thing. I just talked to the guy on Facebook 10 seconds ago. Willie Hassel and Lynn Nickerson. And then August 2nd, Jason Hewlett on Ogopogo. August 9th, Max Hawthorne. It's like sharks and stuff. He writes like fictions about sharks.
Good books.
Robert Sullivan, that's cinema and Freemason stuff. That's the 16th. 23rd's Leo Zagami, that's Illuminati, the Italian dude. Rich Jermu, that's Bigfoot stuff. And then Arlen Schumer, September 6th, that's with you, Jay. That's some Twilight stuff.
Cool.
Not Twilight Zone. Twilight. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah, that would be exciting.
I wouldn't do that show in hell.
Let's talk about glittery vampires
for 2 hours. And then Christina Giordano, September 13th, Betty Page, September 20th, Jeffrey Shanks. That's our weird archaeology friend in Florida. And then Stephen Ward, October 4th. So I'm doing stuff and scheduling for October, the favorite time of year, so that's always nice. Always looking for a Vlad the Impaler specialist, if anybody knows anyone. Those are hard to find.
It's also cool Halloween. It's also cool you mentioned the Freemasons, Jeff, because I just found out at my new job there's a lot of Freemasons that work there. You know how I know? How? They put up a basketball net, and these guys are laying up bricks every day at break.
Nice. Well, we appreciate it, Jay. Thanks, Barbara, so much. Thanks, Mark Eddy. Everybody have a good weekend. I know Viggo Mortensen just released a new Western he made called The Dead Don't Cry, or The Dead Don't, something like that. The Dead Don't something. I got to check it out. But I think it's The Dead. Let me look it up. I don't want to get it wrong. The Dead Don't Hurt. Viggo Mortensen. Wait, let me see. The Dead Don't Hurt. Yeah, okay. It's The Dead Don't Hurt. It's a Western. It has good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, so I want to check that out. Everybody have a good weekend. Good night, everybody. Take care.
Good night.